Hey, good afternoon, class. Our lesson for today is about understanding computer components and operation under Creative Technology 10. First, we're going to identify our objective on this topic. Okay, so our objectives. So objective number one, at the end of the lesson, you were able to describe the four components of computer system. And number two, explain and compare computer components and operation. So but before that, let me show you a motivating video presentation from Bill Gates.
Everywhere you look, computers are changing the world. Whether they're on our desktops, in our homes, our pockets, or just about anywhere else. But while most of us use this revolutionary technology daily, we don't often ask, how do computers work? In this series, you're going to learn how computers really work, starting with what makes a computer a computer. Then you'll look at how information is represented inside the computer using tiny electrical signals going on and off at mind-boggling speeds. After that, you'll learn how computers use circuits to do everything from simple math to simulating entire virtual worlds. Next, you'll zoom out and look at the different parts of a computer that actually input, output, and store all that information. Finally, you'll take a look at what code actually is and how software controls hardware. So whether you're just curious about the devices you use every day or you want to design the innovations of the future, the first step is learning how computers work.
Okay, so Bill Gates stated that innovations of the future, the first step is learning how computer works. So we all know that we are using computer every day and we know how to manipulate computer, but then the question is what really is happening inside the computer. So but before that, we're going to have a simple recall way back in your grade 7 class or grade 8 or grade 9 about computer. So first we're going to define what is computer. So a computer is an electronic device operating under the control of instructions stored in its own memory. So a computer is an electronic device because it's using electricity in order to work. The operation is controlled by the user, or what we call peopleware, who control the instruction. Every processed data is turned into information and stored to the computer own memory. Next, what are the elements of computer? So I think you're able to know what are the elements of computer. So namely, first, we have three, the hardware, the software, and peopleware. So if we're going to differentiate the three, so hardware is the tangible parts of computer system. Software is, of course, the one support the hardware, and it composed of program, either operating system, application program, games, etc. And then next we have the peopleware. Peopleware is the most important element of computer system because he's the one manipulating and working with the computer. Without peopleware, hardware and software were not able to do their works. So we go now as part of our simple recall, hardware and software. So we have to compare hardware and software, or either give the relationship between them. So hardware is defined, or it is developed with electronic components and other materials. In software, it is developed with computer programming language. So we go back to the hardware as defined as it is an electronic components and other material. It composed of circuitry, board, and it is tangible and it is capable of being touched. While the software is the one who give life to our hardware, is what we call software being developed by a programmer, and immediately they're using programming language such as C++ and JavaScript and a lot more. So hardware and software are complementary and cannot act independently of one another. So it means that hardware and software are complementary, they work together. We cannot do, or hardware cannot do the job without the software, and vice versa, software cannot do his job without the hardware. So now we go to the computer system, the four parts or the four components of computer system. So computer system is comprises of four components. So we have the input unit, that is number one, output unit, number two, number three, we have the CPU or the processor, and last we have the memory or the storage unit. Now we go to number one, the input unit. So what is an input unit? So an input unit is a piece of hardware used to provide data to a computer used for interaction and control. It allows input of raw data to the computer for processing. So basic example of input device are mouse and the keyboard. So an input unit is an hardware because it is a device, it is tangible, and it's provide or used to provide data. So data is being processed by the system unit in order to convert that into information. And input unit is the one who converted the data into machine readable form for interaction purposes in order for the computer to control and allow the input of raw data to the computer for processing. So next we have the output unit. So the output unit is the opposite of the input unit. So the output devices are physical equipment that converts information processed by the computer into a form understandable by humans. So vice opposite to the input unit is convert the data into machine readable form, the form of 1 and 0, in order for the CPU to understand the raw data being input by the user and convert that into a machine readable form. That is the task of the output device. So it is physical because it's made of hardware. It converts, so the machine readable form is converted into machine readable form is converted into human readable form. In the form of 1 and 0 converted into text is the basic example of conversion of the output unit. So it passes by the computer into a form understandable by humans. So basic example of the output unit is the monitor and the printer. So next we have the CPU. So this is the brain of the computer. A central processing unit, or CPU, also called a central processor, main processor, or just a processor, is the electronic circuitry within a computer that executes instructions that make up a computer program. So the one who gives tasks logically, arithmetically, and control the whole set of the system is done by the CPU, serve as the brain of the computer. CPU is composed of two major components, the arithmetic logic unit, and the control unit. So we're going to explain the two in the later part of our discussion. So a central processing unit is a processor, or what we call microprocessor. So basic example of processor, we have i7, i3, AMD, and other more. So it is a processor which is composed of electronic circuitry that executes instruction. Okay, so next we have the storage unit. So storage unit is any type of computing hardware that is used for storing, extracting data files and objects. Storage devices can hold and store information both temporarily and permanently. So there are two types of storage device. We have the primary storage and secondary storage. So under primary storage, basic example of primary storage is cache memory, and for secondary storage, we have the hard drive. So a storage unit is an hard drive because it composed of physical equipments, and it is used for storing, and also if we're able to store information, we're able to retrieve. So extracting, getting the files from the device is one of the major function of a storage device. So it holds and store information temporarily and permanently. So we're going to elaborate what is the difference between the storage unit, between the temporary storing and the permanently storing of data, or what we call information. So we have primary storage and secondary storage. So next we go to the process. So the picture shows the process, how the communication flows from input to CPU to memory and reflected as output. So we're going to explain one by one. So first we have the input unit. So what is the task of the input unit? On the process converts physical input to binary information. So it means that input devices convert input data into machine readable form in a form of binary, or what we call 1 and 0. So way back in your grade 9 class, that we're able to convert 1 and 0 into hexadecimal, decimal, and octal decimal. So that is the task of the central processing unit. So in order for the computer to understand the given data, so the input device, the one convert the raw data encoded by the user, converted that into machine readable form in order for the system unit or the CPU will able to understand the given data and convert that into human readable form. So next we have the memory and the CPU. So memory and CPU are technically interrelated when it comes to the process of retrieving and extracting information or data from the main memory or getting from the input done by the user. So first, we're going to discuss or explain what is memory. Memory is composed of primary and secondary. The input data are temporarily stored in a primary memory, or again, the input data are temporarily stored in a primary memory and saved permanently in the secondary memory. So meaning to say that all data that is not saved is being held by the primary memory, but all data that is being saved directly is held and saved under the secondary memory. Now we go to CPU. CPU is the brain of the computer. It is divided into two, the arithmetic logic unit and the control unit. So when we say arithmetic logic unit, the function of arithmetic logic unit is perform logical and mathematical conversion of binary. So it means to say from input device, convert that into, the raw data is converted into binary 1 and 0. So the arithmetic logic unit is the one catches the data and then converted or calculate logically the information in order to give back to the output unit. So the control unit is, the function of the control unit is coordinates how data moves around the CPU. So the one who give how the data run inside the computer is done by the control unit. Next. Okay, now we go to the last components of computer system, which is the output unit. So output unit is defined as converts information to physical output. So that is the task of the output unit. So the output device are physical equipment that converts information processed by the computer into a form understandable by humans. So the final output is done by the output unit, wherein the user were able to retrieve and the processed data is converted into information which is understandable by humans. So we have two types of output. So we have the soft copy and hard copy. So when you say soft copy, so basic example of that is sound. So there is an output, you can hear the sound, but then you cannot touch the sound. So hard copy is opposite of the soft copy, wherein the basic example of that is print out. So using the printer, you're able to print a paper with a picture is what we call the hard copy. Now we go to the flow. So the sequence and how data flow from input down to output. So we're going to explain one by one. So first, input. So what are input devices? So input devices is comprises of the following example: the mouse, the keyboard, the webcam, the microphone, the scanner. So those are what we call input devices. The one who send data into the computer. So the first flow is the input device convert all raw data into machine readable form and send that to the CPU, which the one process the entire data. So CPU includes the arithmetic logic unit and the control unit. So second, the CPU will bop or give a signal to the storage about the given data by the input unit. So send the data to the storage memory, and the storage memory, we're going to retrieve the data from two main memory. So under that, if not saved, if the data is not saved, then it will save in our primary storage. So what are the primary storage? So we have the RAM or the random access memory, we have the ROM or the read-only memory, and we have the cache memory. So if saved, if the data is saved, then it will retrieve in our secondary memory, composed of the hard disk, the USB flash drive, and the memory card. Next, the memory will turn the requesting data to the CPU, and the CPU will send that to our output device, the one who converted the data into machine readable form, composed of monitor, speaker, printer, projector, and headset. Okay, so that's for today. So the last part of this presentation is our online quiz. So our online quiz, we have instructions. So we're using Google Forms for this online class. You can watch my video presentation repeatedly until the given time. Upon clicking the next button, you will not able to watch the video again because it will automatically link you in your online quiz. Okay, so note, do not click the back button of your browser after accessing your online quiz. After answering your quiz, click the submit button and it's all recorded and your score will automatically release. Thank you and God bless.